Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakahagwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. That first woe being World War I, and then the two woes thereafter, World War II and World War III, which will go nuclear. Not only is World War III a part of biblical prophecy, but nuclear destruction as well. This is 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Also, and the works that are therein shall be burned up. And what's going to melt the elements with fervent heat and burn up the works in the earth are going to be nuclear tipped ICBMs being shot to the ends of the earth during that third woe, which is going to bring an end to these current heavens or rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the biblical Edomites or these so-called white people, Caucasians, Americans, Europeans, Russians, etc., as they're known today. Because in the scriptures, heaven and hell can be symbolic for a condition. Heaven when you're in rulership, and hell when you're in captivity, when you're on the bottom, a second-class citizen, which is exactly where the children of Israel are right now. The true children of Israel being known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. So these nuclear missiles are in World War III, is finally our peace and rest from this captivity. And also in the midst of this, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, whose true name is Yahawashi, is going to make his second coming to save his elect. And if you are of that hopeful elect, that when you hear these epistles and understand this word, you should be diligently hearkening for this day to come as quickly as possible, as it's about to say, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Most High. We should be hastening for these things because it's going to bring in our heavens, our new earth, our eternal rulership and righteousness, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat by those nuclear missiles. And in the scriptures, this nuclear destruction is known as the second death. And the first death was during the times of Noah, when the earth, when the Most High, whose true name is Yahweh, flooded the earth for all the wickedness that was taking place on it, and only 8 souls survived. Noah and his wife, as well as Noah's sons and their wives, as well as the animals that were on the ark. Let's jump up to verse 3. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days, which we're clearly living in right now, really the last seconds of the last days. Just read Matthew chapter 24 to see some of the end time signs that would be taking place to let us know we were living in the last days, which are in the process of taking place or taking place as we speak. Earthquakes in diverse places, kingdom rising against kingdom, pestilences, wars and rumors of wars, you name it. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers walking after their own lusts, which, to the sincere brothers out there prophesying this word, we clearly know that these scoffers are out here, not just amongst these heathens, but amongst our own people as well, that scoff at us for preaching the words of our power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi, and saying, where's the promise of his coming? Oh, there's going to be no nuclear destruction. The leaders of these different countries aren't that mad. Oh, You're talking about a so-called black man splitting the clouds and coming in UFOs or the chariots of the Most High to save you. Or we've been hearing about the second coming and the end of days since our grandparents and even their grandparents were hearing about it. For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. And it's been thousands of years since the Messiah, Yahushua, walked the earth, during his first coming. And it's been thousands of years since the Most High really showed those great miracles like the plagues in Egypt or the splitting of the Red Sea. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of the Most High the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was during the days of Noah, being overflowed with water, perished, the first death. But the heavens and the earth, which are now in the last days, by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and the perdition or the destruction of ungodly men. Hey, that second death by fire, to end this current age of the rulership of the heathens, chiefly of the Edomites, who govern this world in wickedness, and the bedrock, the center of wickedness, where all manner of lasciviousness and lewdness and sin emanates from, is the United States of America, which during that third woe, when these nuclear missiles hit, hey, they're going to hit places all across the planet, but the United States of America is going to be the only place which is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. It's going to be hit with 200 million nuclear missiles, which is going to turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea. And starting off with these precepts, this brings me into my first article I'm going to go into from Newsweek.com, titled "Nuclear Attack, Worst Case Scenario Would See 90% of Americans Wiped Out." And if you haven't noticed, over these last couple of years, what have we seen? An uptick in the talks of World War III and the use of nukes in the news, as well as these different countries like the US and Russia pulling out of those Cold War era nuclear weapons bans and peace treaties. That's because we're living in these last days where the earth that is now, that has been kept in store for that judgment by fire, is about to receive that judgment. As if nuclear strikes on U.S. cities weren't potentially damaging enough, an attack on America's missile silos would kill millions due to acute radiation poisoning in a matter of days and spread radioactive fallout across the country, new modeling suggests. A study published by Scientific American on Tuesday found that if the strategic launch bases were hit, most of the Midwest would be bathed in more than a lethal dose of radiation, with the worst case scenario seeing most of the U.S. and Canada becoming uninhabitable, but the entire U.S. is going to become uninhabitable. And it's going to be more than just 90% of the population in the U.S. dying. Anybody in the United States of America that isn't of the elect of the nation of Israel is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Researchers at Princeton University's program on science and global security estimated that in the first 4 days after the silos were struck, between 340,000 and 4.6 million people would die, though the average death toll would be 1.4 million. Try 320 something, or I believe that's the number of the U.S. population, million dead. They predicted that 300 million people would be at risk of a fatal dose of fallout. The entire U.S. population is going to be at a certainty, see certain death of nuclear destruction. That's it with this article. I just wanted to read that point. Hey, just showing that we continue to hear about nuclear, destruction in the news, and that it all lines up with biblical prophecy. And also, the United States of America will be hit but the entire population, save for the elect of the nation of Israel, are going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Now let's get into these precepts. This is Revelation chapter 18. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the header reads, Babylon is fallen. And this is talking about the virgin daughter of Babylon, Mystery Babylon, Babylon the Great, the United States of America, which, besides being known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures, as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8, is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt. And it's very easy to see why this place is known as spiritual Sodom. This is the number one nation that pushes that alphabet lifestyle, beginning with LG, onto the rest of the planet through its politics, its military, and, its media. In Egypt, it's serving in the exact same function that ancient Egypt served for the children of Israel as a hell, a place of hardcore bondage and slavery. And just look at all the symbolism and structures that harken back to ancient Egypt. The Washington Monument, which is an obelisk in the back of your $1 bill, that pyramid. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. And this is talking about those, unclean desert creatures that are going to dwell in the former United States of America after the dust settles after a time, because that's going to be the only thing that, is going to be able to inhabit this place. Those harsh desert creatures like rattlesnakes, lizards, scorpions, stuff like that. Verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And that's not talking about a bottle of Merlot. That's talking about these different philosophies that America pushes out. The alphabet lifestyle, capitalism, feminism, democracy, demonocracy, etc., etc., and has made the nations drunk by fornicating with her. These different nations have picked up on America's practices, and they're seeing a lot of the, negative consequences of doing so. Their women are out of order and whores. Families are broken up. You've got alphabet people running around, etc., etc. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And the U.S. is the number one consumer nation on the face of the earth. Barely any manufacturing goes on here, and America imports most of her goods. That's why a lot of stuff says made in China. Verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, speaking of the elect, getting beamed up onto the chariots as the missiles are coming down, that she be not partakers of her sins, and that she receive not of her plagues, that second death by fire, the elements melting with fervent heat. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High remembered her iniquities. This modern day spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah, this place is worse than ancient Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 6, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she had filled, fill to her double. And hey, it's talking about, after these Edomites, these heathens that get put to death in America, hey, they come back through the reincarnation, through the loins of their Edomite brothers and sisters in these other places outside of America that have survived the nuclear destruction, that are going to be the first fruits of slavery in the kingdom. Hey, you American Edomites especially are going to have double done unto you in the kingdom of heaven as you did unto us. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. And hey, we're going to do everything in righteousness. No buck breaking, taking a man's wife and children in front of him or anything like that. You're going to be punished according to the law, according to righteousness. Verse 7, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. This is the land, or it was known as the land of opportunity, the American dream, the place with whose cities and streets are paved with gold, that when these people get here, they see it's paved with nothing more than broken promises, broken concrete streets, lies. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart or her mind, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no death. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord Yahweh who judgeth her. Hey, that fire that's going to burn up the works in the earth and melt the elements with fervent heat. And it said her plagues are going to come in one day. And it's as it's about to say in the next couple of verses, in 1 hour. It's going to take 1 hour for the United States of America to be completely wiped off the face of the earth. So there's not going to be, as it said in that article, over the next 3 to 4 days, radiation fallout is going to, kill even more people off that survived the initial strike. Nobody's surviving that initial strike. It's going to be a one and done thing. Lament for Babylon. And the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. And that's because they're going to miss making all that money sleeping with this whore. Verse 10, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Point blank period. And the main nation that's going to lead this nuclear strike against Babylon is going to be Russia, which is no coincidence that when you hear talks about World War III and nukes in the news, what country always comes up? Russia. Which brings me to my next article on Newsweek.com. Nuclear war will happen. Putin ally warns. Russian media monitor, Solyov, it will happen, no doubt about it. Point blank period. A Russian propagandist with close ties to Vladimir Putin has warned nuclear war is unavoidable, but that it won't lead to the collapse of humanity by citing previous blasts. And hey, he's right on that. Nuclear war is unavoidable. It's biblical prophecy, and not everybody on the face of the earth is going to be taken out like they were during the first death, during the days of Noah with the flood. But a lot of people are going to die, and everybody in the United States of America is going to be a distant memory. That's all I'm going to read with this article. I just wanted to, further show that point that you're always hearing about Russia when it comes to nuclear destruction in World War III. And Russia has been constantly making threats to the West, particularly the U.S., involving using their nuclear weapons against them. But now I'm going to close it out in Isaiah chapter 13. I'm going to start at verse 17. Babylon will fall to the Medes. And while the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire did fall to the Medo-Persians, that's not what this part is talking about. It's talking about modern-day spiritual Babylon, America, falling to the modern-day spiritual Medes, the Russians. And the Medes were, the original Medes were Japhites, and that land that those Russian Edomites are living in right now were Japhetic lands before they were pushed out by those Edomites who are today known as the Russians. So everything, links up in the spirit when you can look at it. Behold, I will stir up the Medes, or the Russians, against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. And real quick, the modern day Japhites, the Japhites today are known as your Pacific Islanders, your Polynesian people. But as it said, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. When it comes time for Russia to put those keys in those locks and turn them to shoot those nukes, no nuclear weapons bans, peace treaties, Federal Reserve notes, literal gold and silver, or anything is going to stop them from fulfilling biblical prophecy. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and those bows are symbolic for those silos and those launch platforms that are going to shoot those nuclear arrows, those nuclear missiles. because when the prophets saw these visions thousands of years ago, they weren't going to say a Sarmat, Satan II nuclear missile or anything like that. They had to describe it with ancient weapons of war like bows and arrows, spears, javelins, stuff like that. And when you look at a missile flying through the sky, what does it look like? An arrow. And over in the state of Israel with those Amalekite Edomites, they've got a nuclear missile systems called the Arrows, the Arrow 1, the Arrow 2, the Arrow 3. And even here in the U.S., when a nuclear missile goes missing, what do they call it? Broken arrow. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Again, every man, woman, and child that is not an Israelite of the elect, the righteous 1/3 in the United States of America they're not going to make it. Only the elect's going to make it, and everybody else is going to be fuel for the fire. As they say, a bullet doesn't have a name on it. Hey, a nuclear missile doesn't have a name on it. Verse 19, and Babylon, the virgin daughter of Babylon, Babylon the Great, the United States of America, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and for its wickedness that it was committing, the very same wickedness that's being committed in America. How was ancient Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed? With fire and brimstone from the sky. And it's going to be no different with this modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. That modern fire and brimstone is going to hit this whore. And here's just another clear link between the U.S. or Babylon being that great city, which is spiritual Sodom and Egypt in Revelation 11, verse 8. As it says in Isaiah chapter 28, for precept must be upon precept and line upon line. Here a little, there a little. Verse 20, it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. And we know that this isn't talking about the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire, because on the one hand, you had Darius the Mede under orders of King Cyrus, take down the leadership of Babylon in, a surgical strike, like a special forces strike. And then they absorbed those lands and made that part of the Medo-Persian Empire. It wasn't, completely burned with fire or made uninhabitable unto this day. And the Neo-Babylonian Empire is comprised of modern-day Iraq, which we can clearly see people are there unto this very day. Over the last couple of weeks, you've had Iranian-backed militia and other groups attacking U.S. forces there. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. Back in Revelation 18, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Man, woman, or child never setting foot on this place or inhabiting it ever again, and after a time only desert creatures dwelling here. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in her pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. And we can clearly see that the times of the judgment of this great whore, Babylon, the U.S., is no longer being prolonged and is very near to come, with information coming out like what we just read in those articles, and just looking at America around us. It's declined economically. Its militaries are spread thin like the ancient Roman legions, and this place is morally decayed, and it's ripe for the taking. And that cherry on top of the downfall of the U.S. is going to be those 200 million nuclear missiles, which again is going to turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards, where after a time, only those desert creatures are going to dwell here, and it's going to stand as an eternal memorial as to what a wicked kingdom looked like, how not to govern the earth, and what the ultimate judgment was for afflicting the apple of the Most High's eye, the children of Israel, again known as you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, primarily from America. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharallah,